Fighters launched from Japanese warships for the first time since World War II.
Here's a summary of the article.
Kuala Lumpur, 2 Marine Corps F-35B Lightning II Joint Strike Fighters took off and landed on Japan's largest warship, JS Izumo, on Oct. 3, marking the first time that fixed-wing aircraft have operated off a Japanese warship since World War II. The two F-35Bs from the BATS of Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 242 flew from Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni, Japan, to operate on Izumo to test modifications to the big deck warship so the short takeoff, vertical landing version of the F-35 can operate from the ship. This verification is the first time for an F-35B fighter to land on a vessel, and Japan is working to improve its capabilities in the maritime and air domains by steadily upgrading the Izumo-class destroyer in order to acquire the ability to operate STOVL aircraft, reads a Tuesday statement from the JMSDF. We not only collected various verification data but also conducted various training and education necessary for the operation of F-35B fighter on naval vessels, improved interoperability between Japan and the US. Izumo completed the first of a two-stage modification in June that will enable it to operate the F-35, with the first stage adding heat-resistant coating to the flight deck and marking flight lines for F-35B operations. The first of the JSDF F-35Bs are set to arrive in FREE 2023 and Marine F-35s are expected to continue operating off the two ships as Japan acclimates itself to using the fighters. The JMSDF has already conducted a series of engagements and exchanges in relation to F-35B operations with the UK carrier Strike Group 21 while it was in Japan in early September. The Japanese Ministry of Defense in the past had downplayed the future operations of F-35s from Izumo and Kaga, saying the fighters would deploy on the ships when necessary due to the sensitivities over whether the capability would push Japan over the boundaries of its constitutional limitations on possessing offensive capabilities. Operation of Japanese F-35Bs would also mark the first time since World War II that Japan would operate its own fighter aircraft off its naval vessels.
This post received a score of 3,600, with an upvote ratio of 97%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Putting the 35s might fall into a grey area constitutionally, but I think that just shows how the Japanese constitution might need to be revised for the modern military era.
I'm all for calling them Japanese defense ships instead of warships if that makes it constitutional.
The word Japan uses for their ships is goikan, which translates to escort ship, compared to kuchikokan, used by the IJN, which pretty directly translates to destroyer.
Sounds like they're getting ready for a tickle fight.
Greater than goikan, which translates to escort ship. You can take an escort out to dinner, but you're gonna have to negotiate and pay extra if you want a bit of kuchikukan.
Kuchikukan? I hardly know her.
If you don't pay, it's kuchikukant.
Don't be like that, you're sinking my senken. Good bot, but this summary left off the other piece of the equation about the restrictions the victors of World War II pushed on Japan against having offensive military forces. The new Japanese government, following their nation's surrender, adopted a non-offensive military capability clause in their constitution.
Kind of a misnomer. Japan landed a VTOL-capable jet aircraft on one of its euphemistically named helicopter destroyers. By displacement, the Hyuga and Izumo-class helicopter destroyers are pretty mediocre as a dedicated aircraft carrier, but the Japanese Navy also doesn't strictly adhere to the same doctrine as the US Navy.
For an easy comparison, they have the same displacement as the UK's Invincible-class carriers. In fact, the Izumo class compared to the Invincible-class light carrier is longer by 39 meters and wider by 2 meters. China themselves calls them carriers in disguise when decrying them. If their opponent thinks they're carriers, and the Japanese self-defense forces tried to name them carriers, then they're carriers. Another thing to add, the Kaga from the Izumo class is actually slightly larger than the WWII Kaga carrier. They are aircraft carriers even if they don't call them that. Just rewrite the Constitution and remove the self-defense only clause. It's been long enough, and these once-a-decade incremental, grey area, changes aren't helping them.
Funny thing is they have a navy stronger than the vast majority of NATO members and yet still call themselves self-defense force. They also can with creative reasoning justify any conflict with the recent change to the Constitution.
Ever self-defense so hard you accidentally invade another country?
I mean, that is literally how the Germans justified invading Czechoslovakia. We were just protecting ethnic Germans. Nothing to see here.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.